Hi, everybody, and welcome to the West Kootenay Climate Hub webinar series, our noon hour lunch webinar. And we're really excited about this one today, which I'll introduce in just a minute. But first, I'd like to acknowledge gratefully that I'm calling in from the traditional territory of the Sinixt, Tanaha, and Asilks people. And just finding ways to learn from the indigenous wisdom and find more ways to involve those views in our worldviews as we move forward to try to make the world a better place. And yeah, without any further ado, though, I'd like to introduce Stephen Cretney, who's going to take it from here and talk about the NestLab. And then we're excited to hear how this initiative for the Business and Climate Advisor position that Josh Young has got launched, and the backstory, and then hear what he's doing. And then what we will do after that, we'll have some small discussions and then come back for some Q&A. So over to you, Stephen, and thank you for joining.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Laura. Let me just share a screen here. I'm assuming you can all see my screen now.
Looks great.
Thanks for the thumbs up. So I'm really happy to be here with the West Kootenay Climate Hub to share a little bit about the NestLab and how that translates into a business and climate advisory role for the local Chamber of Commerce. I want to just give a quick little thing around the NestLab to give some context to that and why this is even happening at the West Kootenay Climate Hub webinar series, because the NestLab is one of the partners of the Climate Hub. So as we all should know by now, climate change is a complex and systemic challenge. The health of our community, ecosystems, and economy really depend on how we respond to it. And the NestLab is a collaborative local response to some of those challenges, where we bring together a diverse group of people to go through a series of dynamic workshops to try to come up with ideas and brainstorm ideas for some community-based solutions. The NestLab is a social lab, and social labs are social, recognizing that there is a diverse group of people that are needed to help with complexity. The fact that governments or businesses or individual actions cannot solve climate change on its own is one of the reasons why the NestLab took a social lab approach. We're also experimental, where we're actually trying things like a scientific lab, where they're experimenting and testing and sometimes failing. That's the approach that the NestLab takes as well. And social labs are systemic. We aspire to try to approach the challenges of complexity at their root cause and not just at their not at the little problems at the top. Actually try to get down into the deep roots of things with all the different initiatives that come out of them and are working toward trying to do that. Like any system or any social lab, it needs a diverse group of people, not only collaborating and participating in the lab, but also hosting the lab and coming together to try to form that lab. So these are the convening partners of the lab and some of the funding or funders that have come to help us actually create the 2 different years of the NestLab. How the NestLab has worked over the last 2 years is basically what I'm going to show you here. There's the challenge. So the convening partners come around a challenge, in this case, collaborative community climate action. We invite participants. This last year we had 23, and I believe in the first year we might have had 15. And through a series of around 10 workshops, we really try to understand the context of climate change in the Nelson context, as well as share experiences, share knowledge, and make connections. From all that, we the participants start coming up with ideas. And these are ideas that are solutions that we could take on as community members. And those different various brainstorm of ideas end up with a portfolio of initiatives. And it's important that it's a portfolio of initiatives that each person can have some either personal or professional connection to, as opposed to thinking that we need to just do one solution, because there is no silver bullet that will solve climate change or inspire all the action that we need from all the various players. So we really do want a portfolio of initiatives. This portfolio of initiatives, the different groups test them and they improve them and they iterate them. We call that rapid prototyping. And in the end, just like any experimentation, some are able to be scaled up, some have to pivot, some are actually just put on pause, and some are just not going to work, so they get discarded. And all of those outcomes are successes because there's great learnings in all of this. For this second year of the NestLab, a portfolio of 4 initiatives came out. And you can learn about each of these on our website, nestlabnelson.ca, and there's little short videos that we created for each one. Today, what we're going to be doing is more focused on the ICANN business initiative, which then will translate over to Josh's role. So I would like to introduce Rebecca, who is one of the participants in this initiative, to just give a little brief blurb about why, I guess, or how her take on why there was interest in the ways that businesses can be part of the solution and what kind of needs to happen on that front. So hello, Rebecca.
Thank you, Stephen, and apologies to the group that I am unable to show my video today. Trust me, it's for the best. But I want to say thank you. And yeah, it was a really, really great experience to be a part of the NestLab experiment. I actually see quite a few names that are joining today that were a part of the NestLab crew. So it's great to see them here. Thank you for joining. So my journey with the NestLab was, as Stephen kind of outlined, I got put in a group that was kind of focused around communication, and it was really trying to engage our community in the conversation around climate action and all the efforts that the City of Nelson's put forth in building that Nelson Next Climate Action Plan. And just as he kind of explained in our testing process, we were really uncertain about how we should actually engage the community. We had a lot of different ideas and suggestions, but we weren't sure what would be successful in actually engaging them. So we actually ended up pivoting and partnering with the business leadership group. And the outcome was this ICANN business program, which ended up basically being pitched to the Chamber of Commerce, because in our discussions, we believe that they had a really strong connection with our business community, and a position that reported to them would really engage all our businesses in the climate action movement, and then also hopefully provide them with a lot of resources that already exist that they're probably unaware of. So here comes Josh. We went through the process of building a job position, getting some funding, and Josh, we are very lucky to have him in the position of the Business and Climate Advisor, but I will let him speak for himself.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Rebecca. Thanks everyone for coming and having me here today. I'll just share my screen quick. All right. Okay. So yeah, I'm Josh. I'm the Business and Climate Advisor at the Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce. On today's menu, just do a brief introduction, kind of go over my background, how the role came to be. You have some insight into that already. We'll talk about the climate program and some of the initiatives that we have on the go, as well as conduct a brainstorming exercise. So you can't be a business advisor if you don't have any business experience. either working in one, scaling one up, or starting one of your own. And you can't be a climate advisor if you don't have any knowledge on climate change or sustainability. So fortunately, I have both those things. I have a Master's of Science in Human Ecology from Lund University in Sweden, where I also worked with some NGOs that were dealing with issues of climate change or sustainability. And when I came back to Canada, I joined Venture for Canada as a fellow. VFC is a nonprofit organization that helps Canadian recent grads find work with early stage startups, so they get experience on how to scale up a company and how to build a company. That's where I got my first role with Skylight as a project manager, and then later a process manager. And through these experiences, just noticed a huge skills gap and wanted to take a coding bootcamp, which is something that I never thought I would ever do, but I'm glad for it. It was a lot of fun. And I met a UX designer and a digital marketer in a hackathon during that program. And we started our own digital marketing consultancy. So I wanted to highlight these experiences because, one, to have real impact in the business community and to engage businesses, you have to know what their barriers are, what challenges that they have to take action. Specifically with small, medium-sized businesses, they don't necessarily have the same type of capacity as these larger organizations. And just the knowledge on sustainability issues or climate issues so that we can identify kind of that low-hanging fruit to get people to start taking action. So as Rebecca and Stephen kind of have discussed already, this role came from the NestLab ICANN business initiative. And they decided to pitch this to the Chamber of Commerce because of the close ties to the community and just the trust that they have with the business community. And I think this was an excellent decision because it opens a lot of doors for me. When I go to a business and I say I'm from the Chamber, I immediately have their attention. So I'm hoping that this getting in that door and starting these conversations is going to lead to more collaborative action and to the implementation of some impactful climate initiatives here in Nelson. So we're building out the Chamber's program currently. We're focusing both on mitigation and adaptation. On the mitigation side, we're looking at waste, energy, transportation, and education and outreach. And I'll go into more detail about this side when we discuss the climate initiatives that we currently have on the go. And on the adaptation side, we're partnering with Community Futures and the Nelson area economic development partners to really encourage businesses to come up with emergency preparedness and business continuity plans, and to help them brainstorm on how climate change is and can potentially affect their business in the future so that they're prepared in case they have to pivot or in case a major climatic event impacts their business. So I'd like to think that we're focusing on all the aspirations in the Nelson Next community plan and working towards them in one way or another, but these four really stand out to me because our initiatives are focused on these ones in specific. So we have infrastructure and buildings in Nelson are zero carbon and resilient. Nelson is a connected community where all residents are prepared to work collaboratively to prevent or reduce climate change impacts. And Nelson is a sustainable economy and renewable energy leader. And Nelson has a thriving circular economy and generates the lowest waste per capita in Canada. So for those who don't recognize these, which I'm sure most of you do, they are the aspirations in the Nelson Next Community Climate Plan. So some of the initiatives that we have on the go are really focusing on those four aspirations there. The first one is we're building out climate and sustainability resources for businesses so that they can implement impactful climate initiatives. What you're seeing on the right is the new sustainability page on the Chamber's website. It's currently just kind of a splash page, and we're getting those resources up on this section of the website. They're all built out already. The copy is all done. We're just proofreading, and that should be up there soon. And it's a lot of resources kind of directing businesses towards rebate programs or incentive programs to take action, whether that be on waste management kind of issues or energy efficiency, transportation, and then just educational pieces as well as to how climate change is impacting us here in the Columbia Basin. This is a kind of a program in its infancy. We have one business that is thinking about doing some deep retrofits to their building. There's a couple of different rebate or incentive programs that they can go through that focus on commercial buildings, but these programs can be complicated. There's paperwork involved. So what we're going to try and do is hold their hand through this process, support them in any way that we can, and make sure that they're able to get as many rebates as possible. Often, the technology that you're bringing into your building, you'll only get a rebate if that model number lines up with what the government has decided is worthy of a rebate or not. So just ensuring that that technology is the one that's coming into the building, so that they're incentivized to take that action. This is a project we're making some progress on, albeit kind of slow. It's mixed commercial recycling. So for those of you who don't know, under the Recycle BC program, commercial recycling is not really available. They can consider it contamination. So that means that businesses are responsible for hauling and tipping their own recycling and diverting that themselves, which often means you have to work with private contractors, which is pretty expensive and difficult for smaller businesses who don't necessarily generate that much waste. And just the costs associated with it could potentially be the difference between profitability and not. So it's a difficult thing. You wouldn't think that recycling in this day and age would be that hard, but here we are. So what we're trying to do is have a mixed commercial recycling bin down at the RDCK that's staffed by RDCK staff to make sure that there's no contamination and that only the businesses paying into it have access to it. So the chamber would kind of act as the middleman there, where businesses would pay into it, they'd be able to recycle and divert, at least some stuff from landfills. This is one of my favorite initiatives because it gets the community involved. It's really collaborative. And yeah, it's the sustainability hackathons. So for those of you who don't know, hackathons you're not trying to hack into a mainframe or steal data from organizations or businesses. It's really a very inclusive, collaborative event where the group collaboratively comes up with creative solutions to problems. So this would be a themed hackathon. It's sustainability and climate themed. And participants would be broken up into groups of 2 to 5. And a business would come in, present about their business, and present a sustainability challenge that they're currently facing. Then those groups go out, come up with a solution, present their solutions, and a winner is selected. So the benefit here is to the business, they get kind of crowdsourced ideas and solutions to the problem that they're currently facing. And for the participants, you're working collaboratively with everyone else in the community to come up with a solution, a real solution to a real challenge that a local business is experiencing. And how cool would it be if later on down the road, you saw that business implement the solution that you worked on? So it's really creating this environment where we are working together to implement climate initiatives that are going to be implemented here in our own backyard, which would be really cool. So the final one is stories of local climate action. As I started going from business to business and talking to business owners about the climate action that they're currently undertaking or want to, I've uncovered that my mind was blown, really. There's so much going on that I had no idea about and that these businesses themselves have come up with. And the idea here is that we share this with the rest of the community and celebrate this action. We're kind of doing documentary style. We're doing one with Backroads currently on one of their climate initiatives, and it's going to be on our website, shared on our social media. They'll probably share it on their own social media, and we're just trying to get these stories out there for the public. With the hopes of, if we're celebrating this action and all the different action that all the businesses are taking, that those businesses who currently aren't taking action, they might say, oh, wow, we're one of the few businesses who aren't doing anything. Maybe we should do something as well. I think that, positive reinforcement as opposed to shaming is kind of the way to go. And this is one way to do that. So those are the initiatives that we have currently on the go, and I'm happy to answer some questions about those after a brainstorming session. We're going to go out into breakout groups, I think, in a moment here. But the questions that we're posing to you today are, what would I like to see local businesses learn or act upon with regards to climate change? How might local small businesses support our community in our climate goals? And what support do local businesses need to be better equipped to act or adapt to climate change? So I think, is it Stephen, are you putting people into breakout groups?
That's me, and Stephen put those questions in chat as well. So thank you, Josh, then. And so I have some breakout rooms here, and I'm just going to open them. We're going to have about 10 minutes to just chat about these questions and then come back together. And yeah, we can, if there were some things that really came up in a group, on these questions, we can, yeah, answer what those, share them with everybody. And then hopefully also have time for some general Q&A as well for you, Josh. So I'm going to open the rooms right now, and I'll give a 2-minute warning when it's time to close. Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm always the bad one closing the breakout rooms because I'm sure your conversations were as good in all of the rooms as they were in mine. Yeah, so I'd love to, Josh, maybe we'll stop sharing your screen and go into gallery view so we can see each other a bit. And then did you have more slides, Josh?
No, I just had the last one there.
Okay. Well, thanks. Not sure how we want to take it from here, but it might be interesting, Stephen, if you wanted to even take and facilitate this part, if folks want to share out something that was of interest from their group, and then kind of go around each of them.
I would love to hear, and then we can, because this will help Josh. Hopefully, that's the goal, was to help Josh to carry on things with those questions. So I'm not going to go around to each person or anything, but if someone from, wants to say a couple things that came out of their conversations, and we'll do this for, what time is it? Yeah, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, and before we go into if there's actually specific questions that you want to ask Josh or anything, but just 5-10 minutes.
Got his hand up, so we'll pass it to him.
Awesome. Hey, Brenton.
Hi guys, so thank you. So I can do this pretty quick. So in our little breakout group in discussing these 3 questions, what came up was that we'd like to acknowledge the importance of what Joshua's position is, and that certainly there's a hope that the position and the gets extended so that we can continue to derive value over the long term from it. But we acknowledge that it's super important for outreach for you to make it as simple at the entrance or even delivering it to us as small business. You know, and if possible, what small businesses can do is on their own levels coordinate and sort of approach the issue in a unified voice through advice we gain from you through programs like this, but also as a small business community or a business community that we can start to speak to it with some unified voice, so we're not backsliding all the time. And finally, like a real upfront acknowledgement of the capacity of small business owners, both with time, but also with money. Things are tight and lean. So I think that has to be appreciated early on. And oftentimes small business people are dealing with a cascade of priorities, which somehow manage to subdue our enthusiasm of putting resources towards climate change mitigation. So thanks.
The big thing I think I hear from that, Brenton, is the need to make things easy for businesses and simple as much as there is some sort of way that Josh can save us all by doing that.
No pressure.
Exactly. Any other, yeah, go.
I can go from our group unless Jenna, you didn't say anything. No, okay. We talked about most people do want to do something, we just might not know how to do it. And there is definitely an urgency in emission reduction. So we got into talking about, wouldn't it be great to have employee programs for, just like the City of Nelson employees can buy a ski pass or a e-bike or computer, perhaps there'd be some buying power through the chamber, maybe similar to, I think they have an employee benefit or like a medical benefit program. So could there be some kind of an employee purchase for e-bikes or something like that? I thought that was a great idea. We also talked about outreach and communication and just education of like when people are driving to work, where do they park or how do they reduce carpooling or biking, or kind of education for employees. 1,700 rebate for cargo bikes. We talked about that. That's through Plug-in BC. It's a good little tip. And there's also the Scrap It program. Also, Van City has a Planet-wise lending program that could be very useful for planet type purchases. That's what I wrote. Anybody else? Something? It was a great discussion.
What about another group? I can talk to our group if no one else wants to jump in. George, you just seem to be wanting to talk though.
Well, we did talk about a few things around really helping business is an important thing. We mentioned getting the Josh's employment future more secure in terms of this position continuing for sure, and wrapping the business involvement up in promoting civic pride is an important piece, as well as we talked about the importance of business talking to business. Business people know how to talk to business people, so having champions to help us understand needs as well as ways to communicate in a language that makes sense. Because we talked about, I mean, it's almost a cliche that business people don't like coming to meetings. They want to do things, right? Boom, boom, boom. So that's a different way of relating than some other people do. So being able to talk the language of business people talking to each other, those are really important. We did talk a bit about some services that if businesses don't have access to recycling, that's kind of ridiculous. So that we got to find a way of providing that, whether it's tax benefits or whatever, to make that happen, because it's up there with how do you tackle a thing like building refits or transportation. They need incentives as well, because we know small business is often very close to the profit margin level. So I don't know, did I miss anything?
No, we talked about little things like, you know, the idle like a no idle bylaw or something, and getting that would be an easy thing on the transportation point, because Becky made the note that transportation is one of the biggest sources of emissions in Nelson, and that it'd be great if there was incentives for or at least support or something around getting organizations to be using EV vehicles or at the very least minimizing the problems with their current emission vehicles by sitting there idling or whatever.
It's easy. I guess, Stephen, I would say that as a business owner, is that we really need to focus on providing value for the business to make these changes, whether it's civic pride, really let's put it, I don't idle, but make it so that that really has dollar value to them. It increases their business, and rather than thinking that they're going to do everything because it's the right thing to do. No. Anyway, that.
Yeah, I like that.
It's part of meeting them where they are. It's just providing. Okay, I think I'm done here.
All right. Any other group? Anything else? I'm not sure if we got all the groups there or not. And if not, let's just open it up to Josh. We got 15 minutes, and you can always throw in something else. But if we have any specific questions or anything from our group that we want Josh to talk about or ask about, feel free. I'll give it a second for someone to come up with something.
Becky's got her hand up. Yeah.
There we go. So thank you. That's great. I am curious for businesses that do take steps. What's the best way for us to learn about what those are, and B, to give them, snaps, encouragement, kudos, whatever. I'd like to do both of those things.
Yeah, of course. So through the initiative of telling the local stories of climate action, we're going to have a section of the website on the Chamber website with kind of just documentary style, pretty high production. We have Tamarack Media, I think they're called. They're a local digital marketing company who are going in, taking photos. We're providing them with the copy of the story of the climate action that businesses are taking. And that's going to be on the social media pages. It's going to be on the Chamber website. And we're hoping that the businesses themselves share about their climate action. And I know, the Chamber website isn't super sexy. No one really just goes there if you don't know what the Chamber is, right? So I'm open to suggestions for how else we can get that message out and those stories out. So if anyone has any suggestions, feel free to just put that in the chat there.
Josh, I have a question with regards to greenwashing. Businesses putting up, having really nice, slick, great production of what some businesses might be doing for action. How do you make sure that there's not greenwashing?
Yeah, so everything that we would be putting up on our site would be vetted. Like one of the stories is the breweries are donating, sometimes selling their spent grains to farmers to be used as animal feed or as aggregate in the soil. That's one of the stories that we were doing a photo shoot for yesterday, actually. And that one is clearly not greenwashing. It's circular economy. It's a waste product from one business going as a business input to another business, which is really great. Some of the other things are going to be some of the other ones we have lined up do focus more on circular economy. And then there are initiatives from other businesses, kind of more industrial, that could be seen as greenwashing in a way because of just how resource intensive their industry is. But also, if they're taking some steps to try and reduce kind of their energy consumption or to reduce their waste, even though they're in like a resource intensive industry, I still think that those steps are worth celebrating, because it might encourage them to take things a little bit more seriously and to be a little bit more ambitious if they're getting recognized for the action that they're already taking.
Yeah, thanks.
Could I jump in there too, Josh?
Yeah, of course.
Because I would say that this is definitely something that came up in our conversation as well. And I think our approach is that it is a complex problem, and we want to celebrate those people that are making efforts to change and keeping that conversation positive. And I think as long as they're recognizing that climate action is a problem and they're making steps to be better, the conversation should be around more like, okay, well, this is a great first step. This is what you can do even more to help reduce your impact or change your business operations to, like have less of an impact in climate action. So I think we're trying to keep that conversation very positive, just because people do, like, it even came up, and I can't recall who said it, but that is exactly what I feel too, is like, we all want to do better, but we just don't know how or where. So if we can support each other in making those conversations happen and learn from each other on what that looks like, then that would be the success of the program.
Yeah, fully.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have a question here from Tracy, who's not able to join on camera. She's in a loud background situation, and she is actually calling in from the East Kootenay, and she was wondering a bit about how if you can share Josh's job description and knowing where funding came from, because she's having conversations with the chamber there in the district of Invermere. And so speaking of like the positive stories and then sharing that out to other areas. And so, yeah, anything on that would be great.
Yeah, I can, I'll put my email in the chat here. And Tracy, if you just want to send me an email, I can send you the job description. And we got funding from the local credit union here, as well as I think it was
The NestLab
Lab.
gave us some funding. And then the Chamber of Commerce actually contributed some funding as well. It was kind of, the whole board was quite supportive of the role. So they also put some funding towards it. And part of Josh's fun job is finding some grants to continue his job. So, but I think kind of to the point that I think Tom had to jump out, but our goal in the short term is to show the value of Josh's position so that we can continue the funding to make it more of a permanent job moving forward.
Yeah.
Nice. And that's exactly one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that or invite Josh to have this conversation with us, so that, you know, let's support this role. And this is one of our easy ways of doing that. Any other questions right now for Josh?
Well, excuse me, thinking of the chamber website, they could do something like have a monthly or bi-monthly newsletter describing what each of the different sectors are doing, not naming names, so there's no put down or whatever, but just saying restaurants are doing this, retail with a lot of packaging, they're doing this is happening. So we can see it if we go to their site, and other members of the chamber can say, oh, wow, something's happening. I better get on board.
Yeah, definitely. I think just getting those stories out there for not just the everyday resident of Nelson or the Kootenays to hear about, but also those other businesses to hear about, so that they, to your point of just, they feel as if, oh, I do need to do something because everyone else in my industry or in my sector is at least trying to do something, is starting or thinking about it.
Both Eddie and Trisha had stuff, but so I think Trisha might have put hers in the comments. So I'll just read hers first. Is there a network of business energy advisors?
You mean kind of like,
yeah, out there, probably, I assume.
I just
Yeah.
know in the building sense, like BC Hydro runs community energy manager networks. So hopefully there's something through the chambers that supports you and we learn from each other. It's kind of based on the question from Tracy in East Kootenay.
Yeah, like right now, I find the people that have been like very supportive and helpful are people who are running kind of the energy efficiency program at Fortis, and these other kind of larger organizations that do have rebate programs. They want you to use those programs, and they want people to direct businesses to those programs. So they've been very, very helpful in providing a lot of information around these sorts of things, which has been great. And so far as if the chamber kind of has a network, not that I'm aware of, but we're still pretty early on. We're still trying to, get our feet under us when it comes to this program and build things out. And right now the focus has very much been just get as many resources as we possibly can in front of businesses so that they can start taking action. And then hopefully with more funding coming through, we can expand these networks and these initiatives as well.
Thanks, Josh. Eddie, did you have a question still?
My question was pretty much identical to what Patricia's was. Maybe I'll follow up on it and just ask, is this a first in terms of this role within the chamber? Or are there other communities that have some roles like this elsewhere in the province or the country? And so if there are others, then maybe it is worth kind of checking in to see what they've come up with.
Yeah, I think for the Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce, it's definitely a first. We're building out a program that didn't exist at all. And yeah, Tom is super great, but didn't really have any knowledge on climate change or sustainability. And that's why the role is there. And he's been incredibly supportive of all the initiatives that we've had that we're suggesting and proposing. I do believe that there are similar roles in other communities. Squamish is one that I think about. They have kind of a similar community climate plan. It doesn't look identical to Nelson's, but it is very similar, and they're working towards certain goals, and they have a dashboard up there and to show the progress. So there has to be someone there doing kind of what I'm doing, just coordinating or collaborating with different businesses across different sectors and with government and civil society. So they definitely do exist, and I really do need to go and reach out to them to see kind of what I can learn from their experiences so far, what challenges they've had, and how they overcome them. So that's definitely on the agenda.
Sounds really neat that they actually have a goals or whatever that they're reporting back on to see. That'd be interesting to know if that's something that the Nelson Chamber of Commerce would want to do, is have some sort of goal of some sort.
Yeah, that's in the works, I think. Stay tuned. I think we just don't want to duplicate efforts, because the city also is thinking about doing something like that. So we'll support them wherever we can. But yeah, that was something we discussed when I was initially hired, was to have kind of this online interactive platform where businesses can collaborate, but also residents can see the progress that we're making on some of these goals.
And just to jump in there too, a lot of the discussion was not really telling the businesses what our goals are, is hearing from the businesses what they would like to see as the goals. So kind of that outreach discussion is hearing from the community itself what that direction should look like, so that we are having as much value in this program as possible.
Thanks. Well, Josh, there's a minute or two left. Is there anything you want to say in the end to finish this off?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And in the brainstorming session there, I got a bunch of really great feedback and programs that were mentioned that I'm going to look into. And always feel free to reach out to me to kind of check in to see how things are going, or if you want to help in any type of way, feel free to reach out. I've put my email in there in the chat a couple times, but it's just joshua@discovernelson.com. And if you don't like emailing, you can call the Chamber of Commerce and they'll connect you with me as well.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Stephen, for facilitating this section, and Joshua for all of the great insights there for these questions, and Rebecca for the inspiration for the ICANN program, business program, and all of you. And as we close, I just wanted to share with you that I was over at Trafalgar at a grade 6 class this morning, doing an En-ROADS, which is a climate simulator, and we did a role play game. And these young people were asking, how come we're not doing all we can? And, you know, just hearing it come from a young person like that, and then hearing this conversation, which is really great, I think they would be inspired to hear that this is going on, because, yeah, it's actually when they ask that honest question and so starkly, I just said, it just really hit me. So I wanted to end with that, and thank you all for attending as well. So have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Josh, so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.